Thank you again for joining us today. This is a money management training for the Aging Services Network, and today's workshop is on banking and budgeting. And it's a virtual workshop. We're all tuning in from our homes or offices across the state, or maybe you're in your car on your way to work. This is a particularly special workshop for us in the office, and me in particular, because my mom is a home healthcare worker. And I know just how important this work is, and how hard you all work every day to keep families safe and healthy and happy in the stage of their life that they're in. So I'm going to just get started with some welcome remarks, and then I'm going to share a welcome video from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. I will talk a little bit about a resource that our office has called My Financial Life, and then I'll turn it over to our friends at People's United Bank, also known as M&T Bank, and Dutch will be leading the banking and budgeting workshop. We do have a Q&A function, so feel free to put any questions you have in the chat or in the Q&A button on the Zoom platform, and we will be reading those throughout the workshop. So just quickly, our office, the Office of Economic Empowerment, we are a department within the Office of the State Treasurer, and we work on offering free and accessible access to financial education. We promote wage equality, and we work to create a bright future for children across the state through our Children's Savings Accounts program called Baby Step Savings Plan. I will put a link to our website in the chat in case you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, but we're very excited to have you here. We often do workshops on scam and fraud prevention in councils on aging and other communities that are serving older adults throughout Massachusetts, and we do that in partnership with People's actually. So you may have heard of us through those workshops as well. So I'm just going to share this video from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. If it will let me play, hold on one moment. Might need to troubleshoot this. Pause share. I will be right back. I'll pull it up in a different way. Dutch, feel free to provide entertainment while I'm doing this.
While Samantha's getting up the video, let me just introduce myself as well. My name is Dutch Koltoff. I work for People's United Bank, part of M&T, and together with my colleague Amanda, we'll be talking to you today about budgeting. We'll be talking to you about different ways to look at a bank and have a bank support your daily activity. So looking forward to chat. We have a busy agenda, and we'll probably be able to do some Q&A at the end as well. I was an immigrant, and I just want to tell you the reason that I'm so passionate about sharing financial education. When I came to the States 25 years ago, I had no idea about the U.S. banking system, absolutely had no idea about the U.S. banking rules and regulations and how different things would work. And I'm just very happy that I now have the ability to help teach, provide financial education, hopefully help you make great decisions for yourself, as well as for the seniors that you work with on a daily basis. They've seen a lot of changes in the last 10, 15 years. There's a lot of terms, there's a lot of scams, unfortunately, that target the seniors, and you probably see them on a daily basis. So we're truly hoping that today we can give you some education, share some tips, share some successes, and make your life a little bit easier when you deal with the senior citizens on a daily basis, as well as you and your own families, right? So I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And again, if you have questions throughout, use the chat function, use the Q&A. Both myself and specifically Amanda will try to answer it, or we'll make sure that we get to it at the end or via email. That's my intro. Let's take a look and see if we get the video, and otherwise we'll skip it ahead.
I have it ready to go, so hold on one moment. We're going to do it straight from YouTube instead, just to make it a little bit easier. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Chen. It is my honor to serve as the Secretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs. We call it EOEA. At EOEA, we are committed to ensuring older adults and their caregivers have options to live and thrive in the communities of their choice. And that includes ensuring they have the financial ability to do so. I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this money management training that's offered to the Aging Services Network. EOEA is pleased to partner with the Treasurer's Office of Economic Empowerment and the People's United Bank to offer this free education session. We know there are a variety of factors that contribute to an individual's economic situation, including wages, inflation, and emergencies. In this training, you will learn about budgeting, credit management, and fraud prevention. These are helpful tools when navigating one's professional and personal life with economic security. Thank you again for participating, and I hope you find today's training helpful and informative.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bearing with our little technical difficulties. The last piece I just want to share is some information about a website that we have called myfinanciallife.org. It is a website that has resources for residents across Massachusetts on making financial decisions. I will put it into the chat, and if you have time to just check it out on your own time, it's a really interesting site where you can really customize exactly what is going on in your financial picture right now, and it'll feed some videos and lessons that can help you make informed decisions throughout your life. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dutch, and I'm also going to launch the very first poll question of our event today, which is going to just get us a picture of who is participating today. So I will launch that and leave it open for a little bit while Dutch is getting his screen shared.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. I'm going to share my screen while everybody looks at the poll. Let me just see if I can get into correct mode. No, it's always interesting. Technologically, it's always the piece when we do these setups. You would think that after 2 years with dealing with COVID, we would have a good idea on exactly how to work on all these activities. Never been easy, has it? So, all right, share screen, presentation, and share. I am screen sharing. And I'm gonna go to slideshow from current slide. So how's that? Looking for a thumbs up and we'll be good to go.
Great.
Thank you so much. So like we talked about earlier, there's a couple of pieces before we get into the actual topic itself. And thank you for staying with us through technical difficulties. But when you look at the video, we want to provide you, and specifically we want to provide you with the knowledge to help you empower older populations. You work closely with them every day. We so appreciate the work that you do every day. Again, 20% of you are home care healthcare workers. You're a family caregiver. Every single day, you see situations where it would be so helpful to feel empowerment to help these vulnerable populations. And we hope that we're going to give you some support to do that. Teach some additional fundamental skills that will aid you in your role as a home care worker, as a supporter of the elder community, and also continue to share with you that there's a lot of different resources available through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that can help you on a day-to-day basis. So it's truly meant to aid you. It's truly meant to give you an additional foundation and to give you additional support. I do want to stress that these trainings and these webinars are not designed to turn you into financial experts, right? We don't expect you to be financial advisors or give you any type of certification. This is just to give you additional support. And if there's any specific personal questions you might have, or if you any specific scenario that you run into on a day-to-day basis, it is important for you to know that there are financial experts, there are financial advisors, either in your branch network or in the financial network in the community that can help you out. So continue to reach out to these professionals. If this webinar raises additional questions or concerns that you want to know about, make sure that you have them available. We do have time for Q&A. We hope to have time for Q&A. So throughout the webinar, if there is a chat question you would have, if there's a question you want to ask us specifically, we can try to address it throughout the webinar. We can also follow up via email since you registered and you're comfortable with that. The only request I have, which we sometimes see in webinars, which we've seen the last couple of years, please don't use the chat to start side conversations. Answer your question, don't respond to a question. Either my wonderful colleague Amanda or myself will try to get through the question, and hopefully we'll get through the topics. So we have a lot of different topics to talk about in the next 45 minutes to an hour. And the two different topics we'll discuss with you today are banking basics, some terms, some reminders about how the US banking system works. We're also going to talk about some budgeting basics and give you some strategies and tips, which I just think is so appropriate right now when every day we see gas prices at a high level. We talk about inflation and it's getting more and more expensive to go shopping. So hopefully we'll give you some strategies and tips that can help you save some money. And then again, we'll share some resources and we'll share some next steps. Because next week we have another webinar. We're going to talk about credit scores, credit reports, and identity theft protection. So hopefully this is an ongoing series that will continue to give you support when you go forward. So you've answered your first poll already. We kind of know different types of work that you're in. So let's talk about the next topic, and let's talk about banking basics. And we're going to ask you for another poll. Samantha, can I ask you to put the poll back up? All right. So what type of services do you feel you need the most from a financial institution? Savings accounts, checking accounts, money markets, or any other type of accounts? Just let me know where you think a financial institution would benefit you the most, or where you think you need them the most. All right. Gave you a minute to respond. And let's see if you want to close it out. Find out what people say. All right. So most of you would go to a bank to say, okay, I need a daily operating account or checking account. And a few of you have linked that to savings, money market, or other accounts as well. It does seem that most of your activities from a financial institution come to your day-to-day checking account and operations. It's interesting, great to hear. So what different financial institutions can you choose from, right? What are the different options, the different choices that you have when you look at keeping your money and having people manage your money in the United States? So more and more popular and also often used with the elder community or with people coming to the States for the first time are money service, non-banking financial institutions. Now, we always think about banks, but there's a lot of non-banking financial institutions like check cashing services, transfer services, money order services. They often cost a little extra, but if you come new to the country, you're not that familiar with banks or credit unions, they offer a really good service. You just always have to kind of worry about the different fees that are available. We all have heard about banks, for-profit financial institutions that are federally licensed to receive deposits. We also see a lot of credit unions, which are actually non-profit financial institutions. And what you might find in your community or in the senior elder situation, that there's a lot of people that also still keep money at home, might hide money in a mattress. And that often has to do with cultural differences or some misinformation. I think, unfortunately, in my line of business in banking, there's always a lot of distrust. There's often distrust around banks, and people are looking for other ways to safeguard their money. I remember when my wife's grandmother passed away and we did an estate sale. While we were moving things aside, we found thousands of dollars all throughout the house in like a teapot and a tea kettle. And unfortunately, that was probably not the best way to safeguard her money. But I imagine that she felt that was safer, or it might have been safer than keeping the money in a bank or in a safe deposit box, which obviously would not protect her against theft, fire, or even worse. So I personally have learned a lot about the U.S. banking system. I would not recommend keeping your money in home or in the mattress, but it does take some education. It does take some additional knowledge to gain some trust about the different banks that might be available. In the U.S., and especially in Massachusetts, you probably see in every street corner, there's a lot of banks, there's a lot of credit unions. Back home in the Netherlands, I had 3. Now in the little town where I live, there's 14 in a half-mile radius. So banks and credit unions are very similar in a lot of different ways, right? They will all accept cash, checks, wire transfers. They provide loans. They provide foreign currency that you can order. There's a lot of convenience with online banking, ATMs, debit cards, credit cards. And what's important to know that both banks and credit unions can offer insurance on deposits of certain types up to $250,000 per person. So a lot of similarities. What makes them different is kind of the way that they originally were set up. Historically, banks were for-profit. They tried to make money from account fees and interest from loans. And in return, because they made money, they were able to offer more locations, have more convenient locations, have more branches, and pretty much open their membership, if you wanted to open up a bank account, to anyone who wanted to apply. Credit unions originally were often linked to a workforce or to a specific membership. They were non-for-profit, and if profits were available, they would share them with their members. That's still there, and often credit unions were known to offer better interest rates and lower account fees, and in return, they very often were smaller in size and had fewer locations. I do have to admit that in the last few years, the last 20 years, those historical differences have changed quite a bit. Banks have gotten very competitive on rates. Credit unions have gotten very competitive on convenience. So one of the suggestions when it comes to banking that I would just have, and it really talks to a lot of it we talk about, finance, banking is very personal, and it might be worth, instead of just automatically picking the bank that's closest to your home, to do a little research, visit a few banks, visit a few credit unions, explain your personal scenario, the personal scenario of your elderly support person to a banker, and find if there is a right account, if there's a right loan, if there's a specific scenario that works, where a bank or a credit union, either one might actually be able to help you. They're not that different as they used to be. One of the really important pieces, and I think you would probably see this on a daily basis, and I had that same problem when I first came to the country, is insurance. How are banks' insurance? How is my money protected? What happens if this bank or credit union goes out of business? What if they manage your money incorrectly? And it's really important to know that both banks and credit unions have federal insurance, either through the FDIC or to the NCUA, where they protect up to $250,000 per depositor per account for each account category. And that determination and the way that account determination is titled is actually quite interesting. It means that if you are a married couple, you can have more than $1 million with the bank and still be fully insured if your accounts are titled a specific way. If you have children, you can have more than that insured with the bank. So the $250,000 limit really is per person, per account title. There's different ways to get more money with one bank fully insured. And you might find this scenario when you deal with the elderly population where they have a lot of money with different banks. You see a lot of different statements coming up once a month. There's a lot of paperwork. There's just a lot of disorganization because besides the distrust, there's also some misinformation how much money a bank can insure. This is a good way to kind of be able to say, hey, maybe I can help you. If you have different banks from an insurance perspective, again, let's visit the one you trust the most. Let's visit your most common bank and find out how much money you would be able to keep with the bank fully insured to kind of help you with all this paperwork, with all these statements, and keep things a little bit easier and more together for you. It also limits the amount of exposure to fraud. And if you have everything kind of consolidated versus 15 different places you have to continue to keep your eye on, it might help prevent fraud as well. Now, there's different accounts that have different type of insurance. And when we talk about what is insured at the bank, it's the accounts that initially you already said you think about when you think about banks or credit unions, right? Checking accounts, certificates of deposit offer some interest, savings accounts, money market accounts, any interest-bearing accounts. The day-to-day account that you would use for your daily life, as well as for short-term savings, are normally fully insured up to $250,000 per title. What is not insured and what would require additional safeguards are stocks, crypto money. It becomes more and more popular, and unfortunately, even the elderly population is learning or being reached out to about crypto. Annuities, bonds, life insurance, anything that has to do with the stock market, anything that has to do with treasury bonds is normally not insured. And again, it's important that either yourself for your personal planning or your client visits a professional to talk about risk strategies that might be appropriate depending on their age. And at a certain time, it's more and more important to move money to fully insured versus staying uninsured. But I think it was important to know that there's a different insurance coverage available with different banks as well as credit unions. Another topic that you might see yourself, but you also could talk about with seniors, has to do with account ownership. Who has access to the account? Who is able to walk into a bank and have transactions on the account? And when we talk about identity theft protection, this is a topic that will come up as well. So joint ownership, having more than one owner on the account, is the most common way of setting up an account. And it's often a very good idea for seniors when they're sound of mind to say, all right, I have an account for myself, my partner is on it, but I'm also going to add one of my children or multiple children. So if a decision around money needs to be made, I know that it's in the hand of a trusted family member. Full account activity can be done by multiple owners at different times. You can also set up custodial accounts. You might have heard about custody accounts where the parent sets up an account in the minor's name and only the minor has activity. Might be good for us. I have 2 teenage daughters. They hope they both have their account and we set up an account in their name. I still have activity that I can monitor for them. What I would caution you for, or what I want to make sure that, again, you see a specialized advisor for, is what's called the power of attorney accounts. That's where an account owner designates someone else to control and have access to an account. And often that just requires one notarized document. So this is an account ownership status where many times you might see, again, frauds or people that have fraud activity on their accounts. It's often linked to power of attorney accounts. So if you hear your senior citizens talk about power of attorney, if you hear your senior citizens talking about have they been received phone calls or letters, or they've received information on how power of attorney can be so beneficial, again, let's just make sure that they take the time to talk to a financial expert, go to their local branch, talk to a financial advisor, and make sure that everything is set up correctly and nobody else has access to the account that shouldn't have. Now, you play such an important role on a day-to-day basis in both the managing of the money as well as the activity to prevent fraud. Account ownership is a big piece, because as a bank, we just kind of have to follow what the paperwork tells us. Next topic I kind of want to talk about is how to open up an account. And this is something that was near and dear to my heart when I first came to the States, and I work with the Office of Economic Empowerment quite often, and we also very often help people that move into the States as new immigrants. It is possible truly for anybody on this phone call to open a bank account in the US, right? Different financial institutions have different requirements to open up an account, and many bank institutions also have options to open bank accounts for non-citizens. When I first came to the States, I'm now a permanent resident, but I was a legal alien. I used my Dutch passport, I used local address documents, and I was able to start my account. And then later on, once I received US documents, I just updated the account information. But different banks and different credit unions will ask for different forms of identification to open up a bank account, ask for address information, confirm accuracy, and would normally ask for an opening deposit. That truly, from a safety perspective or from a documentation perspective, there's no reason, again, to keep your money stowed away anywhere but in a bank if you have the ability to do so. And what's nice, you often might be able to do it as a joint account. You might be able to do it together with somebody who might have different documentation requirements. So I know I sound like a broken record. Go and visit your branch. Don't necessarily do exactly what other people might have done before you, but visit a local branch, get some good information, and get some information to talk about, okay, is it possible for me to open a bank account? Is it possible for me? What type of documentation would I need so I can safeguard my money? And the same thing with some of the senior citizens. Do they have the right account set up? Do they have the right documentation in place to make sure that their money is safe for themselves and for the future? Okay, so important thing to remember. There's a lot of different ways. Once you have your bank account, once it's titled correctly, your money is there safe. One of the best inventions of the last 15 years, I think, is online banking. I work at a bank. I probably visit the bank once every 6 to 7 months if I might need a cashier's check. All my banking is done online. I love online banking. I love the convenience of being able to look at your account on a daily basis, either by computer or by phone, tablet. Just take a look and see what's happening on your account. When we talk about fraud prevention, one of the really great resources and tools and really great support you can offer to the senior citizens is just share with them how easy and safe online banking can be. So they can see what's happening on their accounts. They are not surprised if there's any activity that they were not expecting, if there's any type of memberships that they were not familiar with that keep coming out. Mobile banking really makes it easy on a day-to-day basis to help the elderly population or yourself keep an eye on their activities and make sure when there is education, when there is knowledge, to know that this is a very safe way to manage your money. We're going to talk about scams a lot next week, but just some reminders. Passwords. The number one used password in the US is the word password, or the word password 123. So obviously that's not very safe. When you sign on to online banking, use a secure internet connection. Make sure that a website starts correctly and you don't get fraudulent internet, and never provide personal information via email, via phone. If you're dialing in with your cell phone while you were on the call with me so far, you might already have received 3 different messages. I get 3 to 4 a day, where Amazon or UPS tells me that a package is being late and I need to click on the link, or my bank, that's not really my bank, tells me that there's a block on my account or I need to click on a link. Do not click on links. Do not provide personal information via email, via phone. No bank will ever ask you for personal information. They'll ask you to call, or they'll ask you to set up something in person. But be careful when you use online banking. Don't be afraid of it. It's still a fantastic tool and resource to use. Okay. All right. That was quick. And again, we have a quick agenda, so I'm sorry if it seemed that maybe I was a bit rushed, but I wanted to quickly talk about different financial institutions that are available to you and the senior citizens, specifically how you can protect and insure your money and be safe and feel comfortable with the U.S. banking system, and then some strategies around using your money, setting up the account, and using online banking. So I'm going to stop for a quick second and just see if there's any specific chats or any specific activities that we need to answer. Oh, it looks like Amanda is already right on top of it. Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda.
My pleasure.
Yay, there's Amanda. Hi, guys. Hey, Amanda. And we're going to go to the next topic. So we have a half hour left for the next topic, which is going to be budgeting. And just like with our first topic around banking basics, I'm going to ask Samantha to share a poll. Poll question number 2. Let's see if you guys are still with me. What are some obstacles in budgeting? Why don't you want to set up a budgeting plan? Does it take too much time? Do you think it's too complicated? Or you just know that it's going to be stressful? Give me a thought. What are an obstacles? Why do you think you don't want to budget? I always like polling questions because I can make sure I know their audience is still listening. So please do me a favor and pop in your answer, and we'll move on from there. All right, Samantha, just from a timing perspective, I say we close the poll. We're going to talk about budgeting. It takes too much time, 27%. It's hard. And it says, wow, interesting how there's a very good mix between it's being complicated and stressful. So budgeting just does not sound like it's a lot of fun. So I wish I could tell you that after today, you're going to be like, woohoo, now I love budgeting and I'm going to be doing it all day, because that's made it the most fun topic of the day. Probably won't happen, but I will tell you that it's one of the most important things you can do, right? It is so important to help create a plan to spend or save your money. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like the word budget. I also don't like that it helps you spend money. I normally think about budget as ways to create a savings plan. How can I move my money around? How can I make sure that I have a plan in place to start saving, right? help you save for the future, help you save for the emergencies, help pay down debt if debt is already there, and help you live within your means. If there's one tip, one action item that I want to make sure you take away from today, is that you take a little time and at least once a year, sit down with anybody else who has access to your funds and make a written budget. It will help. There's many reasons for not starting a budget plan, many reasons people don't want a budget. I don't want to think about the future. It's too complicated. It is stressful. It might take too much time. It's a hassle. Most of these are mental, right? Most of these are blocks that have nothing to do with our physical ability to set up a budget plan. It has nothing to do with our activity on a day-to-day basis. It's truly a mental concern about, man, it's hassle, and then I'm afraid to see what will come up. Many of our clients think that a budget, a written plan, can only be done if you have a lot of money. And I can tell you from experience, I moved to this country with $50 and 2 suitcases. Eventually having a written plan was the main reason I was able to make my finances work. And I'll share with you, my parents, and they're here on vacation from the Netherlands, they always taught me not to spend the money that I didn't have. So save before you buy a car, save before you make a large purchase, save for the future. But when I moved to the States as a 22-year-old, I was quite easily overwhelmed and influenced by the fact that a lot of the marketing and a lot of the advertising was focused on what I was able to afford per month. No, I couldn't afford that $30,000 car, but yes, I could afford $150 per month on the lease. No, I couldn't afford to buy that 55-inch television right up front, but the first question somebody at Best Buy asked me if I wanted to get a 10% discount if I applied for the credit card. Well, sure I do. So it's very easy to fall into this spending habit. What am I able to spend each month to afford some of these nice items that I always would like to have, and kind of lose track of all the different monthly activities that will help pay down debt, live within your means, and save for future emergencies. So I speak from personal experience. I know it's important. And there's some things you need to do that will make creating a budget more fun. First is goal setting. Right? It never sounds like fun that you want to pay off a credit card or that you want to work on paying off debt or paying off a mortgage. But there are some really good goals you can set for yourself that will help with your budget. And I would recommend that you divide your goals into 3 different sections: short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. What do you want to do in the next 3 years, 3 to 10 years, or over 10 years, right? And we all know we want to save for retirement. It might be creating a college savings fund, but especially for the shorter term goals and the midterm goals, I would ask that you visualize your goals. You want to go on vacation, and that's your short-term goal for less than 3 years. Imagine where you want to go. In my case, it'd be a nice little Hawaiian beach. Take a picture of that Hawaiian beach and pop it on your fridge. Midterm goals. I live close to the water. I'd love to have a boat. Take a picture of the Amazon yacht from 500 million of Mr. Bezos that's stuck in the Netherlands right now. Pop it on your fridge. So you have daily reminders, fun reminders of where you want to go, what you want to do, and why you live the lifestyle that you live. And I'd go one step further. You have the ability, and this is a tip you see at the bottom, you have the ability to nickname your bank accounts. So I have different bank accounts set up for my different savings goals. And if I go to the bank and I need to take money, or if I go online and I want to transfer money from a savings account to my day-to-day checking account, I am not moving money from savings to checking. No, I'm moving money from my Hawaii vacation to my checking. And believe it or not, this is a little mental block. Many times I'm like, I don't think I really want to do that. Are there other ways that I would be able to support the decision I want to make instead of taking money away from Hawaii? So just a little trick. You can even unlink your card. So when you go to the ATM machine, you don't have the option to transfer money from your savings to your checking. You literally have to walk into the bank and make that choice to do so. Little tricks to kind of keep that money going towards your goals on a day-to-day basis. But again, seeing that yacht, seeing that Hawaiian vacation at least gives me a personal interest in wanting to set a budget. The next thing you do before you start setting a budget is get organized, right? You can't just say, all right, I think I make this much money and this is about how much goes out. I have nothing left each month, so I can't really do a budget. And this can also be done very easily and pretty in a pretty fun way. Most banks right now have budgeting tools, have personal finance tools directly on their app. You can use online app like mint.com. There's different apps I've seen with truebill.com. There's a lot of technical advances that have been made in the last few years that would help you keep track on your money. What I would recommend you start with is the old-fashioned way, and take at least 3 months of your bank statements. Take at least 3 months of your credit card statements. If you have a joint account, if you share your money with a partner, together with your partner, take a fun Sunday evening and say, all right, let's talk about our goals, and let's take a look at where we organize and where we spend our money. You might find that you're both spending money on the same item without realizing it. You might find that there's memberships that you signed up for that you never used. You might realize that you spend a little bit more money on coffee or on shopping than you thought you did. So it's important that you have good track of all your sources of income, all the different expenses. And again, I would recommend you look at least at 3 months of data to get a good idea of your income, your debts, and your expenses. So you have your goals, you know what you want to save for, you're fully organized. Now it's time to create a budget or a savings plan. There's so many different budgeting strategies. You can go online and type in budget strategies and many will come up. They're all good. My one recommendation is you're going to pick a strategy, you're going to pick a plan that you're comfortable with, that speaks to you, that you think is fun, and stick to it. As long as you focus on a strategy, as long as you remain focused on a strategy and stick to it, it doesn't really matter which specific strategy is the most popular. It's almost like a diet. Stick to it, follow it, and eventually it will work. We're going to focus today on a program called the 50-30-20 rule. And we're just going to use that as an example for the next few slides. But again, if there's a different one that speaks more to you, feel comfortable using it. 50-30-20 rule pretty much means that 50% of your income should be focused on needs, items you need to have to live or to pay on a good lifestyle. 30% of your income should be on wants, things you'd like to have, and at least 20% of your income and savings should be focused on savings and or debt repayment if you need to start that first. Doesn't mean that you have to follow exactly 50-30-20%, but those are the guidelines you want to work towards if possible. So we're going to look at somewhat of a real example in a minute, but I just want to explain first what income specifically means. Gross income, net income. So gross income is the amount of money you earn before anything is taken out for taxes. Net income is the amount of money you earn after all taxes are taken out of your pay. Net income is the money you would use for your budget, right? Net income is actually the money that that gets deposited from a pay perspective into your accounts that you have access to. Gross is the money that taxes still need to be taken out. So don't make the mistake of focusing a budget on your gross income. Make sure you focus on net income. One key piece to keep in mind of, if you or your partner or anybody else you share finances with have access or work for a company that offers an automatic savings plan before taxes, a 401k. I'm not certain if that's the case. I know a lot of you probably work in a different tax situation, but if there is a pre-tax savings plan available, take advantage of it because it will help your overall savings goal. But for our example, we're going to focus on net income. And you need to figure out what your wants and your needs are. What do you want to have? What do you need to have? Here's just a list of items that I've set up, and you can take a quick little look. And this is similar to my story about banking. Budgeting is personal, right? This whole page could be a discussion point for a whole seminar because every want and need kind of varies by person. I have a family member who will tell you that coffee is an absolute need, right? I can't tell you which on this list definitely is a want and definitely is a need. We're going to look at, for example, but when you set your goals and when you work on your budget, it's important that you take a look at all the different expenses that you've listed and then separate them into categories. What are wants? What are needs? What are items I can totally live without? What are items I need to reduce a little bit? What are items I need to have every single time? We probably all agree that rent, health insurance, utilities, car, that's important to have and we need to have, and we can't do anything without those. But maybe we can work on some of the other activities and take a look at it. I am not going to tell you, not today, not ever, that you need to quit any of these activities. And if coffee is something that you like to spend money on, I'm not going to tell you to stop drinking coffee. I'm not a proponent of looking at a cup of coffee a day, and if you stop doing that, you'll live better. What you might be able to do is reduce some of those wants, but I don't want to be unrealistic. Like any budgeting plan that works for you needs to be realistic. You need to continue to have fun. You need to continue to have entertainment. You need to make sure you take care of your mental health as well as your financial health. So there is going to be a good mix between wants and needs, and I don't believe in cutting out completely everything just to get to a certain goal. So in our example, if I put these wants and needs together, and I looked at what I would consider wants and needs, this is where I initially came up with, right? $1,835 in needs between rents, groceries, childcare expenses, car payments, transportations. Where do I live? Where do I eat? How do I get to work? How do I make sure that my family's taken care of? And on the wants, coffee, restaurants, entertainment, clothing, and the salon, $330. Minimum payments on 2 credit cards and a student loan of $100. What's frustrating on this initial budget when I looked at it, looking at these example amounts, is that I was already spending more than my income. This total is $2,265 on an income of $2,200. It's only $55. It's just enough that I wouldn't notice it each month, but it would stress me out every month to try to pay the bills because I'm just a little short. The other piece that's missing is savings. I'm spending all my money on needs and wants and debts. I don't have the ability in this plan to save money. And again, these are example budgets. I realize that rent for $600 might be hard to find in Boston, so maybe there's a roommate scenario. But I also typed in childcare expenses. I just kind of look at a personal scenario. You'd have to do the same thing. Once you put your income together, once you put your bills together, and you separate your needs and your wants, these numbers will look different for you. But unfortunately, for many people, when they first start a savings plan, they realize, wow, I'm not saving enough. I don't have enough to save for the goals that I already initiated. And maybe the wants and needs percentages are way off. So how can we fix that? Right? Either need to raise our income or we need to lower our expenses. You guys work really hard already. I don't know, raising income by getting additional work or freelance work or gig work is an option. So I'm going to specifically talk a little about lowering some of the expenses to help free up some funds. Right? How can we lower expenses? Through debt management. How can we lower expenses by reducing some of our spending? Are you taking advantage of all the different resources that the Commonwealth has available to you through all the different programs in the state? Different ideas to help you lower expenses. And this is also, if you have specific tips while I talk and you're like, oh, wow, Dutch, I can't believe you're not talking about this. This would be good to add in the chat if you have a specific tip to lower your expenses. The first one I'm going to start with, like it states right here, is debt management, right? And that's when you have some credit cards or other monthly debts, and you looked at your balances and you put your debts together when you started your gathering of information. Most of us have debt, and there's different methods, again, to pay that off. And just like with a savings plan, as long as you pick one and stick with it, you'll be fine. What most people do, and where a mistake that commonly occurs, is that when there's a little extra money, you might be inclined to pay a little extra to each card each month. The best proven strategy is to focus on one debt first. So either you pick the card or the loan with the largest interest rate, pay that one off first, which is called the avalanche method, or you pick the one with the smallest balance and pay that one off first with a little extra money, which is called the snowball effect. And once you've paid one of those bills off, you then take that money and use that money to start paying down the next debt or take some of it to save. The only piece that's missing on the slide that I want to make sure you do, if you've paid off that larger credit card balance or if you paid off that first card, celebrate. Take some extra funds, have some fun, go out, have a nice little smile. Everything throughout budgeting, everything throughout savings plans. I want to make sure that you celebrate those milestones when you pay off an item and truly recognize that you're on the right track. That will make budgeting fun. That will keep it personal, and that will keep it engaged. That's how you reduce debt. The other piece, and we could probably spend a whole hour just on this slide, but what are some tips to reduce spending that actually can work? And again, each person is different. Not all tips and strategies work for everyone, but here's a few, and some of those work for me. Go out grocery shopping nowadays, please only shop with a list. So we have the Alexa app. Every time in the house that we need something to be added to the grocery list, we tell Alexa to add it to the list. We found out that many times there were items on the list because we have a fridge downstairs in the basement that only I like to walk into. The rest of the family hates walking to the basement. So I kept buying items that were on the list that people were adding on top of the basement that were still in the fridge downstairs. So now I know that before I go out shopping with my list, I first go down into the basement, check the fridge, and make sure I don't double buy. Coffee is a good example, right? Used to be Starbucks, and I'm still a Starbucks person, but Starbucks was expensive. So I was actually able to talk to the barista. I'm like, man, I like this type of coffee. I like my espresso. Why am I paying so much for a cappuccino? And they said, well, you can just do an iced espresso, which is half the price. I'm like, what? Taste the exact same, was actually a little bit better, and I cut my coffee spending in half without stopping drinking coffee by talking to a barista. It might be worth spending a little money on one of those espresso machines and see if that will give you the same type of taste before you leave the house. We reviewed our cell phone data as well as our cable plans. I was at AT&T, and AT&T on their website actually shows you the amount of data that is spent the previous 6 months. So I was able to see, wow, I don't need unlimited data for the whole family. There might be another plan that works for me. Same thing with cable. I'm one of those cord cutters. We actually signed up for fast internet. We signed up for Sling TV so that we have about half the amount of channels that we used to have with cable, but instead of paying $130 a month, my bill now is about $75 a month. So another piece that helped me a lot, and when I shop for car insurance, I've been with the same car insurance company for years, and I was wondering why every single time on TV I see the Gecko and I see Liberty Mutual and there's all these different insurance companies, and they tell you can save this much money just by calling us. I thought that just wasn't possible. So I made that call, and it turned out it was possible, and we may save a lot of money. The trigger for me is that my daughter, my teenage daughter, got her driver's license, so I knew my insurance rates were going to go up. But just by calling my existing insurance company after 5 years and having them revisit and reshop around, they saved me enough money to help. So just like they were shopping around, do the same for yourself, shop around. And again, it's personal, right? My daughters, it turns out that consignment shopping is cool right now. When I grew up, I needed to have the coolest fancy brand names. Right now, it's really cool to go to consignment shops, and kids visit consignment shops. I couldn't be more happy when my kids go out clothing shopping because they go to consignment stores and we save some money there. A lot of different ways to reduce spending. And again, if you have any tips or suggestions, if you're like, wow, this is something I would like to do in today's world, this is something I've seen done, feel free to share it in the chat app or follow up with your friends to talk about after. So what was the impact for me? We have a few more slides and we're going to make it before 9 o'clock. But what was the impact if we took these savings steps on the next budget? So what you'll see on the budget that I put together, this is very similar to the first ones. I cut down on the wants, but I did not quit anything. I negotiated the car insurance. We canceled some of our movie subscriptions and then changed our data plan. I did not reduce my expenses for childcare. I did not reduce my expenses for transportation, for medical or groceries. All that stayed the same. I am paying down my debt. And if you look at the budget, I'm also saving $100 each month. My overall budget is actually less than the $2,200. So without cutting out anything, just by negotiating and by reducing some of my wants, I was able to take the exact same monthly expenses, the exact same monthly income, and move it to a plan that I'm saving each month, I'm reducing my debt, and I still have some of the wants and some of the needs that I'd like to have before. I am definitely not at 50-30-20. This is closer to 70-15-15. However, reducing my debt will then help get me closer to 50-30-20, or increase my savings so I can get to my goals. Okay. There's a plan, I stick to it, it works. It takes a little bit, but if you stick to it, it will work. Make a habit of savings, make it automatic. If you have the ability when you get paid to have your money split between a checking and a savings account directly at the beginning, move your money to savings, act like you've never had it. So take that $100 from my previous example, have it automatically go to a savings account, unlink it from your debit card or ATM card so you can't easily transfer it back. The best savings plan is an automatic savings plan where every month automatically money will move into a savings account. And when you put your budget together, you might not even put it on the budget anymore because you know it's automatically going to go. Use that savings in a couple of different ways, right? You might need it to protect yourself. If there is, I'll let it say, but if there is an emergency, you need to make sure you can protect yourself so your written plan and your budget plan doesn't right away fall off the cliff. When you start paying down your credit cards, maybe one of those credit cards you put in the safe deposit box, that becomes your emergency credit card. Same thing for your savings accounts. I told you I have different names for my saving accounts. One of my savings accounts is called emergency account. So a little bit of my savings goes into an emergency account each month. Hopefully I'll never need it, but it would not prevent me from staying on my budgeting plan if I use it correctly. So I want to make sure you think about that. So I've said this many times, right? How do you stick to the plan? Hopefully I gave you some ideas. Hopefully I gave you some information between setting your personal goals and visualizing them and initially putting all your information together, which might not be the most fun part. But there's a lot of ways and there's a lot of information that can help you reduce your expenses and hopefully help you stick to a plan. It's really important that you start off your plan with the rewards, right? Set this personal goal of what you want to achieve. Don't focus on, oh, I need to quit smoking. I need to quit drinking coffee. I need to quit wearing all vacations because I'm not saving for retirement. No. How can I get to retirement without losing all the pieces that also mentally make me happy? Strategy number 2, keep it automatic. The more you can set up automatic savings plans, the more you can save up automatic bill payment plans. The more you make your plan automatic, the more fun it will be because there's less stress for you to worry about paying the bills. You know they're being done automatically. So most of the online bill payment service that your bank offers can be set around payment days. So we get paid each Friday. You could set it up that your bills go out every Monday or late on Friday, if that makes it better. Create these buckets, right? Wants versus needs, goals. Don't just generalize all your income and all your expenses. Create different buckets, different categories to help you realize your strategy and your savings plan, and automate everything you can. I talked in the banking section about visiting your bank. Your bank credit union is a really good partner when it comes to budgeting. Most banks have budgeting plans directly on their website. Just as important, they have balance reminders. They have low balance indicators. You have the ability to have your bank send yourself a text or send you a reminder if your checking account falls below, let's say $100. You can set whatever limit you would like. So you don't have overdrafts. You don't have to worry about overdraft fees, which could derail your savings plan. You can send up reminders that a bill payment is due. You can set up reminders that a transfer is due. You can make sure that different activity that you need to stick to the plan is automated if you help with the bank. So visit your financial institution, see how they can help, and communicate. Communicate to the bank, but also communicate to your friends and family. They need to know that you're on a savings plan. Don't say I'm on a budget. Don't say I can't afford this because I'm sticking to a budget. No. Hey, I'm planning to go to Hawaii, so today I'm only going to have 1 drink instead of 3 drinks because I'm going to go to Hawaii. Woohoo! Much more exciting than say, guys, I can't afford 3 drinks today. So focus on the rewards, but share with everybody so that they know what you're saving for. And your next birthday, your next celebration, they might actually give you money to help with your Hawaii vacation. So share your activity. We're getting to the end of this, which is good because we've got 3 minutes left. So before I see if we have time for Q&A, couple of pieces, couple of reminders for next steps. At the end of this session, there's going to be an exit interview. And I really would love for you to make sure that you follow the exit interview, answer a few questions so we get a good idea of one, if this content was useful, if Dutch was useful, and what we can do better when we get ready for next week. There's a lot of online resources like the Office of Economic Empowerment, the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. There's a lot of resources that the Commonwealth offers to make your life a little bit easier, to give you support in your day-to-day interaction, both for your own family and for the senior population. So make sure you reach out, learn, and take advantage of all these resources that are available to you. One of my favorites is the one that was shared early on, myfinanciallifema.org. The same resources I use when I talk in these webinars, the same slides, the same information are available on a website where you can create your personal plan, do a personal interview, and have personal lessons to help you with your finances on a day-to-day basis. It's a fantastic website, a fantastic program, myfinanciallifema.org. Definitely check it out. And last but not least, if you can, next week, Wednesday the 27th at 1, I'm going to be talking again, credit and scams, fraud prevention, a virtual workshop, specifically to help you learn about credit reports, credit scoring, and how you can protect yourself against fraud and scams. All right, that leaves me 2 minutes. So I'm going to just take a look. And Amanda, I see some things in the chat. Oh, thank you, Samantha, for seconding the registration. If there are any specific questions you'd like to add at this point, we have a minute to answer them. If not, then feel free to follow and make sure you do the exit interview. But any specific question, feedback, anything you want to share, we do have the Q&A and the chat function open at the moment.
Yeah, there's nothing outstanding yet.
Well, then I say we are right on time. Look at that. We have 30 seconds left. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It's a hot day. Stay cool, stay hydrated, take care of your families and the senior citizens the next few days. It's going to be a tough few days. But thank you for taking the time to learn about what I think is very important for yourself and for the people you work with. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again next week.
Thanks so much, Dutch and Amanda. And thank you all for joining today.